Hi, everyone. It's Judith Briles, and we're back for another edition of Author You, Your Guide to Book Publishing. And I get to do a brag. If you know about Good Pods, we had 5 in the top 10 rankings of categories on Good Pods for our show, The Author You, Your Guide to Book Publishing. I loved number 5, top 5 book tips for authors. So how cool is that? So we get to pat ourselves on the back here. All right. As you know, I always like to start a show with how to how to create actually snappy, sassy, salty success for authors. These are my quotes. So I did a random open because my guest has been with us before, Dan Janelle, and I opened it up to the section that's called Success is a 7-letter word. So here it goes. An author is a craftsmith. Words are the tools. Success is choosing the right tools for the job, which is perfect for what we're going to be talking about today. Because Dan is an author himself. He has a brand new book coming out that will be debuting, probably in about a month, called Reframing Cancer, which is his personal memoir. What we're going to be talking about is a little bit different today, not cancer, not memoirs. We could be writing memoirs, which is going to be part of our topic. But what we're going to be doing is pulling from his book, which was Write Your Book in a Flash. How does that sound? Really cool. And the fact that Dan is also a ghostwriter and developmental editor. So we're going to be crossing over in all these places. You can find him. I always like to give the website at Janelle, Janal, danjanelle.com, but just the Janelle, Janal.com, to get more about who Dan is and how to work with him and all the goodies he does. But we're really going to be talking about writing and editing. I've been focusing on this week. I just finally said to maybe in a goodbye letter to a client, you don't get what it takes to create a writing project. They think, Dan, that they can do it from the idea, concept, that's the soup part, to the dessert in an hour. And when you now we have to talk about production. We have to the creation, about the marketing, the outreach. All of that is part of the mix. And I'm always, and it comes across too much that they don't get it. It's the big picture. It's just not. They think when they finally get the book done, it's done, and it's not done. It's just starting. So that's my kickoff. With us is Dan Janelle one more time. He is brilliant. His prleads.com website is also something you should know about. And I always love to do a brag because Dan is a true creative. I mean, who else could come up with the marketing strategies that really kicked off a little company called AOL? How many years ago, Dan?
Long time ago.
And far, far away, right? Anyway,
Different universe. Yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
different universe, but coming across with the technology and the marketing to support that technology that deals with something that you and I and everyone deals with almost on a daily basis, and sometimes more times than we care to admit, in the email and the technology communication that kicked off a couple of dozen years ago, it seems like now.
A couple of
So,
dozen decades ago, it feels like. Yeah, those were interesting times. But when you talk about a book, it really comes down to putting words on paper. It really comes down to that simple fact.
mm-hmm,
And most people find it really difficult to do that. And in today's
mm-hmm.
episode, we're going to go through 10 or 12 tips that can help you write your book faster. And the first one, the one that I find mixes up people the most, is they write and they edit at the same time. And that's impossible. You think you're writing a sentence, you want to make it the best sentence possible, so you go back and you fix it. So the quick brown fox jumped over the moon.
Right.
No, it's not the quick brown fox. It's a particular brown fox. It's not really brown. He's sort of mauve. It's not a fox. I think a wolf would do better. And is it the moon? I think Mars would be a much better thing to shoot for. And if you take that approach, you're never,
Mhm.
ever, ever going to write your book. You definitely
Oh
have to
yeah.
separate your writing from your fiction. So just
You know,
forget
oh,
about
oh,
writing a perfect sentence. Just get it down on paper.
no, perfection is going to be your block for sure. And it also, just the example you did with the quick brown fox, which is what we all learned how to type with in our age range, okay?
Right.
Which was a standard thing, and then return the typewriter, right? Remember that?
Ding,
Return
ding.
it, yeah,
Remember
ding.
ding?
Oh yes, we love the ding. But the thing is, it will you'll see it does a block on you. It can zap your creativity if you keep going back to do that diddle. So this is the phrase I use. I say it all the time. You become the one for the money, two for the show, two for the show, two for the show, two for the show. I can't even get you to three to get ready, much less go. So what he's saying, you've got to really separate the editing from the writing, and the editing comes after you write. Even though alphabetically they would people put editing and writing, no, it's really writing, and
Yeah,
then you come back and do
right.
the fine tuning.
Right.
So
So this gives you
thank you.
permission. Sure. This gives you permission to write ugly first drafts. Anne
Yes.
Lamott, who's like the godmother of all writers, wrote the preeminent book Bird by Bird, told us to write bleepy first drafts. I'm saying ugly first drafts because it's more permissible on a podcast. Give yourself permission to write badly. Write a bad first draft and then go back and edit it. That's okay. Many times you just want to write sloppy. Get your ideas down there. Write lists, write bullets, do anything you can. Just don't look at a blank page. We'll talk about how to improve on a blank page in a second. But
Hmm.
basically, get your ideas down there. Then you can go back and start to do your editing and your polishing. That's the normal way to do writing. Get it down, clean it up. I think she referred to it sort of like, brushing your teeth. You put it on, you polish it, you brush it, and you
Swish,
make it
swish, swish,
better.
swish, 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 swish. We have to swish it. Spit it
Right.
out. Okay, then maybe do it again.
Right, right. Okay, so you can write your bad first draft, but how do you get started? How do you get really started? You need to write from a clear structure. You need to have an outline. You have to know what you want to say and what order you want to say it in. And when I work with my clients as a developmental editor, that's really one of the first things we do. It's like, who are
Hmm.
you writing for? How are they
Hmm.
going to benefit from this? And also, what are you writing? How are you writing? What are you going to benefit from this for? And the
Hmm.
intersection of those two needs is where you have the content for your book. And from that, you can list the 10 principles that you want to share with people. I say 10, it could be 8, whatever, but I think I'd start with 10 chapters in a book because the first chapter is about you and about the author, about the reader, and about what you're trying to do with the book. The last chapter is the conclusion, what you want them to do next. The 8 chapters in the middle, and we're talking about a nonfiction, how-to, self-help kind of book for business or for self-help,
Thank
a developmental
you.
book,
Hmm.
are the 8 tips that you want people to learn from. And these are the
Hmm.
8 principles that you want them to buy from you. These are the 8 things that you are superb on. These are your 8 superpowers that people hire you to work with you on. So talk about those ideas. Talk about people you've helped. Use those as case studies to share,
Hmm.
to show people that you've worked with people just like them to solve problems that they have. Now you have those 8 chapters in the middle and just, you'll never look at a blank page. You'll never have writer's block.
Never
You'll
again.
never
Right.
wonder, what am I going to write about when you sit down at your desk?
I think that you and I both started in the nonfiction arena. We've now gone into other arenas too, genres. But the fiction, the nonfiction, the kiddo, those big spots that people drop into. And it was always, and number one, I think that the nonfiction was easier because we did have those tips in our mind.
Hmm.
We did have our key goals. We did have, okay, I always used to think of it, okay, what's the problem? What's the cause? What's the effect? And how do we get out of this mess? What's the solution? That's the way I structured almost all my nonfiction books. And then the weaving that went on were just what you said. What are the stories? What are the case studies? What are the ahas? Maybe what kind of I used to put exercises in some of my
Hmm.
books.
Hmm.
activities in some of my books to get them through whatever they're blocked on to move into whatever the next step where we're going with it on that. So I love ugly first drafts. That just sings to me. Um, and the problem is people get stuck all the time in that. And if you will just go with what Dan just said, everybody, wait a minute, where are we going with it? And that's easy for the nonfiction, but people are saying, but wait a minute, I'm a storyteller. I'm
Hmm.
I'm writing fantasy. Oh, good. All right, but it still has the same principles. At least I think so.
Oh, sure. If you're writing uh, fiction, just keep asking yourself, what if? And we know there are two kinds of writers in
Oh, I
nonfiction,
love
the
that.
pantsers
Yeah.
and the non-pantsers. The pantsers write for the seat of the pants. They have no idea what's going to happen next when they sit down to write, and that works for some people. And there are other people who say, okay, this is where I want the story to end. How do I get there? And they have the steps all outlined out
Mm,
there. There's no right
mm,
or wrong. People are wired differently. It's okay. But as long as you say, what if or what's next, that'll get your brain thinking about, okay, what would happen if she turned left instead of turned right? What, you know, what,
mhm.
what if she didn't go to the nightclub that night? What if she did go to the nightclub?
Or,
Uh,
or, or what if I just did this what if with my writing partner because I said, I am so sick of this guy. What if we just whack him? Just whack him. You know, I'm glad to write the whacking scene.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I was once at a mystery writers conference. And I was in this elevator and just chatting with this woman. And she asked me what I did. I asked her what she did. She said, "All right, murder mysteries." I said, "Why do you do that?" She said, "I like to kill people." Here I'm in
Oh
an
my God.
elevator with this person I never met before. She goes, "I like to kill people." It's like, can't get out of this elevator fast enough. Fortunately, it was just her fantasy and not her reality.
Oh, but I had that same conversation, by the way,
Oh,
with a woman. I wonder if our woman is the same, Dan. She was for years the mystery writer behind James Patterson's murder clubs. And now she's on the front
wow.
cover. And
I
not
should
only
have
did
gotten her
I,
autograph, maybe a selfie.
not
Ooh.
only did I learn what he pays her quite handsomely, but she just said, I like to kill people.
I
That's
think we
what I
might be
do
talking
best.
about the same person. It's a
What?
small world, Judith. It's a small world. Yeah. Some people are wired differently, and to get moving, they need goals. And in that case, there are a couple of tips there if you're that kind of personality. I don't know if it's type A or type B. I don't know. But there's some people who say, like, I got to do something. I got to see some progress every day. So maybe you set a timer for 20 or 25 minutes or 45 minutes and you just write every day. No checking email, no research. This has forced you to prevent their mental drift. A few focus sprints can outperform long, distracted sessions. Like if you say, I'm going to write all day today, you can't. I can't. And I'm a former journalist. I used to write 4 stories from scratch every single day for 4 years. And that included interviewing people. That's a lot.
Mm,
And that's like
mhm,
professional
mhm.
level. You can't do that. It's really, really hard to do. Don't set yourself up for failure. Set yourself up for success. You can write for 15 minutes a day. Frankly, if you write 15 minutes a day, every day, I guarantee you'll have a book done in 6 months or less. Because in 15 minutes a day, you can write 500 words. Do that 6 times a week. That's 1,000 words. Do that 10, well, books today are about 20 to 30,000 words. I can't do the math this fast on a podcast. You can when you slow this down. In 6 months, you will have written 20 to 30,000 words, all because you wrote 15 minutes a day. And you all have 15
Focused,
minutes.
focused. Yeah, focused,
Yeah,
focused.
right.
Yeah.
You get up 15 minutes earlier, go to sleep 15 minutes later. If you have to take the kids to soccer practice or karate practice, write for 15 minutes while you're sitting in the stands in the waiting room. You all have 15
Mhm.
minutes. Do it during your lunch break. If you don't do that, then frankly, you don't really want to write your book. So 15 minutes is the simplest thing you can possibly do. So set your timer and keep track of it. This is another thing. I like to keep track of my numbers. I have a spreadsheet and I just keep add the
Hmm.
15 minutes, add the number of words I wrote every day, and just it builds and adds and adds
Hmm.
and adds. It's like compound interest from the bank, except actually compound interest from your bank at 1% isn't very much. But when you write 1,000 words a day or 500 words a day, it adds up fast. And you get that
Hmm.
visual reinforcement that you're actually doing something and you're progressing something. Here's a tip also, when you have your first draft done, I know we're zipping ahead here, but at some
No,
point
no, it's
you will have your first draft done. I suggest you print it out at that point and print it out
yep,
on 3 hole punch paper. Then take that manuscript and put it into those 3 hole binders and create a page on the front. It doesn't have to be a fancy page, it just says like the name of the book, your name, and put it in
yep,
that little slip cover and show it to your spouse or your kids or the people at work and say, see, I've written a book, and it'll feel and look like a book. And yeah, you want to edit it, you want to copy edit it, you want to go back and revise it and all that good stuff. But at
yeah.
that point, you say, wow, all those 15-minute sprints really amounted to something because here it was 3, 4, 5 months later. I have something physical that really looks like a book.
Hmm. Well, as you know, I don't actually I don't know where these numbers came from. Maybe you can help me, Dan, as a journalist. That but the spiel is that roughly 80% of the people want to write a book.
Hmm.
You know, you've heard those numbers, right?
Oh, I was at Mayo Clinic the other day getting my blood drawn for, and the phlebotomist said, he asked me what I did, and I told him, he said, oh, I want to write a book. My life story is really, and he really had an interesting life story. He'll never write a book. But everyone wants to write a book because they think they have something to say. And that's really important. If you don't write your book, you are cheating the world out of your experience and your information and material that can make a
Hmm.
difference in other people's lives. So I
Hmm.
want that
You
to
know,
be the inspirational point for all of you that if you're not writing your
yeah,
book, you're not only cheating yourself, you're cheating all the people that you could have helped.
I want to loop back to the who and the why, just because it's so important that to really for all of you to understand who you are writing for. Is it kiddos? Is it men? Is it teens? Is it wackos? Is it addicts? Is it kick-ass women? I mean, who are you writing for? Because that will bring such phenomenal clarity, especially if you go into a stuck period. Look at we've all had stuck periods.
Hmm.
And that I've literally, Dan, put my laptop down and, you know, my friend, Annie is across from me and I'm telling her about a dilemma. I'm going, Annie is, like my imaginary friend. And
Hmm.
and Annie is my ideal reader on that. And my mind talks back to me for Annie on that. And sometimes, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I should have turned right instead of left, and I should have gotten in the brown car instead of that flashy silver car. I mean, those kind of things will happen. But the other really important one is besides the who are you writing for? Where do they hang out? What are they about? What are their fears? What are their concerns? What are their secrets, etc.?
Hmm.
It's why you why you you know and who are you in this process, and what does it bring to you? And I think that's really important to understand, the why of you in it, and a lot of authors don't think about that, and I just wanted to reiterate that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's really important, and that's another thing that I do with my clients at the very outset, because
Mhm.
everyone will go through that dip. You know, you learn how to play the guitar. Oh, this is good. I'm going to learn how to play the guitar. This is going to be a
Mhm.
lot of fun. I'm going to be a rock star. This is great. I learned a couple
Mhm.
of chords, learned a few songs. This is great. After a couple of weeks, your fingers hurt. You're kind of bored. You try to make that F chord with that really hard press on your first finger that no one can ever do the first time, and you get discouraged. We all get discouraged. We all go through that dip that happens, no matter who you are, no matter if you're writing a book or playing the guitar or planning
Yep.
anything. It's just part of normal human being relationships. That's why I
Hmm.
go back to saying you have to have that why about why you're writing this book to keep you going. Like when I wrote my book, Reframing Cancer, it's like I had cancer, I overcame it, I discovered ways to reframe my mind and to do writing exercises to make sense of what I was going through. And I could use this to help other people who are going through the same thing. And
Hmm.
that was my why. That kept me going when I said, I really don't feel so well today because these chemo drugs are really knocking the hell out of me. But I kept
Right.
on going because I knew it would help other people. If you have that strong enough
Hmm.
why, that'll keep you going on those days
Hmm.
when you feel like, why am I bothering doing this? Because we all go through that. It's just normal human beings.
Well, reframing is such a great word
Ah,
in
thank
so
you.
many ways. It's like I love to use repurposing. If
Hmm.
I don't have to redo it over, if I can tweak it and I can do this and come out with blah, 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 blah. I mean, I find that when I move into the writing zone, and whether that, and usually it's a blog, something happens, or I see Dan, something that triggers. I see a trigger
Hmm.
that goes on, and then my mind goes on a wild chase. Where are we going with it, and what can I do with it?
Hmm.
In the whole creation of going on. And I did a blog this week, a couple of weeks ago, on SOS. What about your SOS with your VAs? Those of you who have virtual assistants, and it was just something that I had one of my longtime assistants move from the Philippines to the United States, and so a lot of things that we were doing we could no longer do, and all of that, and just really the SOS it put me into because of the knowledge that she had that we just assumed we've been working together for 12 years.
Mm.
She knew me back and forth. I knew her back and forth. We could kind of just think in the same zone, but not together. And that I just realized that there are things that we all need to have is our own policy. I came up with it. You should have a policy manual for
Mm.
everybody you work with, what they do, from the logins, the codes, all that stuff. And just for your own, that's a sanity thing. So I ended up writing a whole blog on it, and it
Mm.
just flowed like crazy. So,
Wow,
yes,
that's a great idea. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, SOS. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
All right.
Cool. Oh, so
This
what else
is
can you do to write faster? Well, we talked about
yeah.
research a little bit at the beginning. You don't want to write and
Let's
research at
let's
the
come
same
back to
time.
that. Yeah, researching is very important.
It is, but sometimes research is this a disguised form of procrastination. It's like,
Yes.
oh, I think I'll do a little bit more research here. I think I'll go into Google, go into Ask AI, and see what they say about this, and instead of writing. And I think that's a trap that a lot of people have, or because one, we can easily disguise it as saying we want this book to be as good as possible. So I want to find one research study that backs up what I just said. Well, why one? Why not two? How about three? Let's see what the Stanford medical people say about this. What about Cleveland Clinic? How about the Mayo? How can let's make this book as good as possible. We'll have 20 research. Well, in the meantime, you're not writing because that one bit of information will be one footnote to back up your case study or whatever. And that's it. You basically wasted another day of writing by doing a day of researching and saying you were making progress. Now, that's not to take away from the fact that you do need to do research. You do need to do your interviews. You do need to talk to people. You do need to go online and find credible sources to back up your statements. But when you sit down to write, you should have all that material with you. And if you are writing and you
Yes.
suddenly find a hole that says, I wonder what they really mean by this, or I should go deeper on this, then you make a little note and say, do
Yeah.
more research later and keep on
My trick.
writing. Don't
Yeah,
let it
let me tell
stick
you
you.
my trick. Yeah, because I've done national studies to support my
Mhm.
books with toxic workplaces. And I learned very quickly. to do when I know I need to just come back to this. See, and that was the magic word. I can come back to this.
Yes.
So I use three capital X's
Hmm.
and I just drop it into the body of my text. Three X's. And then when I'm all done with that fabulous draft, that first draft that you've just told everyone, print it out, three-ring punch, put it in the binder with your name on it saying, ta-da, this is the first draft. All I have to do is now do the word search with the triple X. It brings up all the stuff and I can start doing the fill in on the next round.
Exactly, exactly. In fact, I'll give you another tip along those lines. When I'm
Mm,
interviewing someone, everything is on Zoom and everything is transcribed and everything, and we'll have
yep.
these great brainstorms, and I'll say, "That's perfect. That should be in the book." And they'll say, "What did I say? What did I say?" And you can never recreate it. That's why I love to have everything as recorded, and then I'll say the word chocolate, and then we can search for the word chocolate to find all those great sentences and great words and
Ah,
great ideas that they
ah,
have. And you can use any
ah,
word you like copy this or find
yeah.
this, whatever, but I like chocolate. So it's a nice verbal
Chocolate,
reinforcement.
chocolate sounds lovely.
Speaking of writing and
Yep.
talking, some people don't like to write. Let's admit that. There are people here who say,
Yep.
I have all these great ideas. I can tell my best friend about them, but I just sit down at a computer I just can't get the words out of my
Hmm.
mouth,
Hmm.
out of my hand to my fingers.
Yep.
And, that's okay because we have a thing now called transcribers and
Yes.
voice memos.
Yeah.
I actually interviewed a woman on my podcast who wrote her book while she was stuck in traffic on the New Jersey Turnpike. She would just start dictating. Talk about
Hey.
finding dead time and making good use of it. Yeah. So if you're one of those people whose modality is simply not being able to get the words out of your fingers, then turn your voice recorder on and you can get a transcript. There's so many programs now that are built into transcribers. It's amazing. I mean, you can download it, have it on printed paper, and then edit it yourself or hire an editor to go through it for you and
Hmm.
clean it up or expand on ideas, but you'll have that first draft done just by talking it out. And then you can either clean up yourself or hire someone like an editor or developmental editor or ghostwriter to work with you to take it to that next level. But you can get the ideas out of your head simply by talking. So pretend you're talking to your best friend and tell them like, what's happening to you? Then you write your memoir. You just spill it out. You spill your guts there. Or you're
Hmm.
talking to your direct reports on how to do a certain function at your office. Here's how to do it. Do this step, then that step. There's another step. Here's how you'll benefit. And it's all there. As long as it gets out of your brain and into paper, I don't care if it's coming
Hmm.
through your fingers or coming through your mouth.
Hmm. Dan, I had someone who actually wrote his memoir by walking around the neighborhood, and he would talk to himself the whole time, dictating the whole thing. He did it
Mhm.
on his cell phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone has a cell phone these days. It's all there. And if you tried this a couple of years ago and it looked kind of screwy, well,
Yeah.
the technology has improved 100,000 times since then.
Hmm. Hmm.
You can even have
So
programs
let's
that take away the ums and the ers and the ahs and things like
those.
that.
I don't worry about those. I
Mhm.
tell people let them go. I mean, I love your chocolate idea, you know, and throwing and having your own secret word that you
Mhm.
can just search for. But I think that when I'm going to loop back and then I'm going to go forward again with going for the walk,
Sure.
that special word like yours is chocolate. See, mine would be milk chocolate. But anyway, so I'm not a dark chocolate girl. that that you want to select a word if you're going to do have that little trick that would not be really very common in your
Mm.
writing
Yeah,
style. Otherwise, you could be all over the place. When you go into your control F and you go for your find mode to try to find all this stuff. All right, so now let's go back to the walking and the talking with your say your mobile. So Dan, a lot of people don't even know how to do that. So what would be the mechanism? Everyone, we've got our mobiles, right?
right.
So
Yeah.
what would we turn on here to start that process?
Sure. I think it's called voice memo. Yeah, here's voice memos. on my iPhone, just click it and press the red button there that says, red button record, and then it'll open up a new file and you just start talking. And as you're talking, you'll see the little waveform forming over there
Mm-hmm.
and the timing as well. And when you're done, you just press that little button again and it'll stop and you can give it a new name like, chapter one, or here's my anecdote about talking with Judith, and you're good. Then once you have it, then you can download it into a okay, I'm sorry, you can view the transcript because as I did that, it was recording it and creating a transcript for this. So
Mm-hmm.
I can go back in and edit it from there. I can download it to my PC or my Mac and take care of it from there. So it's really pretty simple.
So they can either on the download it to, well, you have a Mac, I use a PC, but there's you just maybe they don't even know how to download. I hate to say
Um,
that.
how do you download? You can email it to yourself, I believe. You just
Well, I
press a couple
actually I
buttons
think
here,
that's a great way.
copy
Do you
paste.
know why, everyone? If you email it to yourself, then you can just copy the whole enchilada and move it into a Word doc.
There you go.
So easy. And I want to now, loop into that. You if you want it in a Word doc, you don't go all over the Timbuktu. When you turn this into a book designer, they want it in a Word document. And don't please don't convert it to a PDF. You're going to make me cuckoo. Um, it will make me cuckoo. And then when we try to convert it back out, you know what happens sometimes with this? It turns it into a giant single line, single space,
Oh boy.
not single line, single space document. All the paragraphs are gone. All these things, it is a disaster. So just get into the habit. I mean, I have a client who writes everything on her iPhone. She's okay, Judith. What do you think about this? I wrote this all up, and I said, "Look great. Convert it over and send it to me. I'll add it to our pile to work with." And I'm amazed. This just she's so adept of doing the two finger thing and going thing. I'm my style was doing this thing. I do that very fast. But these people, I'm actually in awe who can, you know, and doing that. That's what she does at her 80 years of age. What can I say?
Yeah, everyone has a different modality. I once thought I could
Huh?
write my book by speaking it, and I couldn't. The words did not come out. I just couldn't do it. And here I am, bearing kimono, talking to you on this podcast, speaking perfectly normally, telling stories. I could not do that if I were writing a book. There's just some mental block there. And we all have those mental blocks. We have biorhythms as well. So here's another tip. You are better equipped to write your book at certain times of the day. Some people in the
Yes.
morning, some people in the afternoon, some people at
Hmm.
night. Doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong. It just matters what your biorhythm is. And to identify that and respect that, and then build that into your schedule. So you know that every day at a certain time of day, you're going to spend 15 minutes or 20 minutes writing your book. And if you are inspired and write more than 15 minutes, that's perfectly fine. It's sort of like, working out, doing
Hmm.
walking. You say, I'm going to walk for 10 minutes. Well, you're feeling pretty good. You walk for another 5 minutes, another 5 minutes. Before you know it, you've walked a mile, then you walked 2 miles, and then you walked 3 miles, and you didn't even notice it. But if you said, I walked 3 miles today, you say, oh man, that's a lot of miles, and it's kind of hot outside, and you'll never do it. But if you get that rhythm going and the momentum going, you start with the 15 minutes. If you're done in 15 minutes, fine. If you have that momentum
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
inspires you, then that's the lever that keeps you moving. Keep on going because there's nothing better than being in the flow. When you're writing your story and it's like, oh, it's just coming out, and you don't even notice the time flies by.
I mean, I love to get into the flow, or I call it, I move into my writing zone. And I've mentioned other times I'm a binge writer. That I can go away. I used to do this way, publishing at Sea Cruise that I did. I would often stay a week after. all by myself, and I could come out with an entire draft of the next book. Done.
Wow.
Done. That
Mm.
first draft is done. And going through because I can become in that zone. And I know let's talk because you wanted to talk about environments, the ideal environments. So that's an environment that I can work in. We all have to find our environments, that you can do that drop in and drop out and you get I become myopically centered almost when I move into that. Um, and that it's nothing can penetrate you, nothing can do whatever. It could be just for that 15 minutes that Dan's talking about. It could be that, oh, now I can add another 10 on because by God, I have it. I got
Mhm.
so much done. I'm in the flow of it. And I think that what you have to do is honor that when those moments hit on it. And just because you feel good, a lot gets done. And it's kind of like, who was this person who wrote this?
Yeah, there are internal distractions and external distractions. So we talked
Yes.
about some of the internal ones that are stopping people. Let's look at some of the external ones. You want to have your desk set up a certain way. There's no right way, no wrong way. I'm just saying, like, your comfortable space. You don't want any distractions from your kids or your spouse or your pets. I mean, I have two cats who love to sit in my laps, and when they do, I can't get any work done because they love to sit on the keyboard. There must be some little bit of heat that comes off the keyboard
Yeah.
that warms their little butts. They love to sit on the keyboard. I can't get any work
Yeah.
done. But it's fun. But I realize I'm not going to get any work done. Okay. Then there are other distractions like social media. I hate social media, but people are addicted to it, and you got to block yourself from those things. There are actually apps that can turn off social media for 15 minutes or an hour or a day or whatever. And maybe that's what you need to keep you from being distracted. Don't check your email, things like that. The other thing is that stops people from writing is internal, and that's the imposter syndrome. That's where you think like,
Ooh.
who am
Mhm.
I to write this book? There are other people who know a lot more about this. Professor Smith at Harvard, she knows everything there is to know about this topic. Who am I to write this book? She would run circles around me. Well, truth of the matter is, she's an expert in her field, and you are an expert in your field. No one knows what you know at the infinite, intricate level that you know it to be, whether it be a memoir or a how-to or self-help kind of book. You know what it's like to sell real estate in your county, or how you survived uh, cancer, uh, in your by doing certain things. You did it, no one else did it, and they need to know how you did it so they can benefit from your story. I don't do memoirs for women going through all sorts of abuse situations. I know a friend of mine does. And I said, how can you read those books? And how can you write those books and live with that kind of torment and read about those horrible atrocities? And she told me that people get inspired by seeing how other people have overcome those issues. And that's when
Mhm.
I got it. I understood
Yep,
what they were
that's right.
getting at. People don't talk yourself out of your knowledge. Most people deny their own superpowers. We don't know our superpowers. What we find so easy for ourselves, other people say, gee, I wish I could do what she does. She makes it look so easy. And we're saying, oh, write 15 minutes a day? Yeah, I do that with my eyes closed. So, one of the truisms about people like us, people on this podcast, is that we are really talented and people will pay us a lot of money for what we know, and we
Mhm.
don't even realize it because it comes so easy to us that we just take it for granted that everyone can do this. And it's
Mhm.
not true. We devalue ourselves. And I think that's one of the key things in the imposter syndrome. We don't realize how good we are. It's not bragging. It's just saying, like, this is the gift that God gave us. Let's share it with the world.
Mhm. I think that I go back to when I got in trouble all the time in school. I got in trouble all the time in
You?
all the time. Two things got me in trouble all the time. I talked too much. And in fact,
No.
Dan, it was routinely on my report cards. Little Judy talks too much. Okay, so little did I know I was going to become a professional speaker that took me around the world into all 50
Mhm.
states, earning, you know, great fees to share my knowledge and information and solutions to issues. Little did I know. The other one I got in trouble for all the time is I passed notes. I
Hmm.
was very good it, it's scribbling little notes and and folding them up, and sometimes we would fold them funny ways, so you would have to open them certain ways and passing them. So I got dinged for that. Again, little did I know that was going to be part of my career profession. So we never know. That's our reveal for the day, people.
Right. And let's think of that one step further. You had
Mm.
teachers who were digging you for your superpowers that made you rich
Yes.
and famous. So, invariably,
Yes.
I have heard that people get dinged by their coworkers or by their family for the same things. Oh, you'll never write a book. Oh, you're not smart enough to write a book. One of my good friends, she's a consultant. She tells a story all the time that her father would say, "Oh, you'll never amount to anything." What kind of inspiration is that? It's negative inspiration. That's horrible stuff. But she overcame that. But if you grow up with that kind of negative enforcement, it's
Mhm.
hard to break out from that. Fortunately, she did. And she's a great person. She's actually a very good writer. Her grammar is a little bit off, but she's a very, very good writer. That's why you have editors.
My,
But
my God,
don't
today
let
anything
anyone tell
goes.
you you can't write your book.
Yes.
Block them out. These people should
Yeah.
not be in your universe. Don't
Mhm.
listen to them. Listen to people like Judith who say everyone can write a book. You can get your ideas on paper, and then an editor can clean it up, make it better, take it to the next level. But your story is unique, and you need to share your story with the world.
Well, I actually do modify that a little bit, Dan.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
that I
Everyone
think
can be edited. I'm fine.
everyone can be it, but that I mean, you and I have seen our share of books that you're thinking, what were they thinking? Um, okay,
Okay,
you and
there are those.
I have seen our share of books. Is how in the hell did this get green lighted at a publishing house,
Hmm.
or how did this movie get out? That maybe someone has, gazillion million dollars they just wanted to kiss off, you know. And I always say, you could have mailed it to me and I would have sent you a thank you note at least. So with that said, I think that um I think I am all for legacy books actually. I am actually all for getting those stories out so your family and close friends have them. But should they all be distributed nationally or out there into the universe? I don't think so. I think that there some that they just should be in the closed circuit. So that I will differ a little bit that everyone should publish a book
Okay.
in that way.
Well, let's revise this. Everyone should write
Oh,
their book, but whether they should publish it, that's another
that's right.
story.
That that is what I say.
Yeah. Here's
Yeah.
a funny story. One of my friends is a ghostwriter, and he specializes in writing books for admirals. So he goes to the
Oh,
Admirals Club in San Diego,
I love
and
that.
the wife of an admiral holds up one of the books and says, "Look, my husband just wrote this book." And the other admiral wives look at their husbands and say, "You should write the book." And there's my friend, the ghostwriter, hanging out in the background saying, "I'm the one who wrote the book." And suddenly he has checks for five more books. So that's the best marketing he could do. Is anyone going to read that book? I don't know. But, writing a book for your family is a perfectly fine thing to do, with
Mhm.
the sole intention that the only people going to read it are your kids and your grandkids and hopefully your great grandchildren, and take it from there. And you're not going to spend zillions of dollars on some phony baloney fly-by-night marketing company that's going to say, "We're going to turn your book into a bestseller,"
Oh
when
my
it's really
gosh.
meant for your internal audience of your family and your friends.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm working on I've been working actually with this one person for 2 years now on her book. And it was always to be just a legacy. She has now come and she had almost no memories. I mean, I had to be the therapist as we started pulling unbelievable things that with my questions, the triggers would start.
Mm.
And doing that. And it's taken a long time to come this full circus. And now she's saying, maybe others would be interested. And
Mm.
I said, I always felt so. I
Yeah.
always felt so. But you have to believe that too,
Yeah.
author
Eh,
that. And yeah, I mean,
yeah.
let's see, do we have anything on our list? Because I would love to talk with you a little bit about the ever-changing thing of publishing, because it has changed so much
Hmm.
in the last 5 years, certainly the last 10 years. Definitely. Dan, how long have you been around publishing?
Oh, my first book came out in 1991. Self-published the book on desktop publishing programs. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So one of the
And
biggest things that's changed, of course, is AI. And I'm sure a lot of people are listening are saying, like, how does AI fit into all this? And I think
Mhm.
that AI is good for brainstorming and creation and for grammar checking, but it is not the tool you use to write your book because everyone who uses AI, everyone's book is going to sound exactly like everyone else's book. In fact, one of my clients sent me his draft yesterday, and I started reading. It's like, wait a second. He said,
You knew.
this isn't just about this, this is about that. And I said, wait a second. That's AI writing because I asked AI to write like a bio for me, and it's about my
Yeah.
book. I said, this isn't just a book. This is a manual that teaches you how to get your ideas and thoughts out into the world so you can make the world a better place. Again, that construction, it isn't this, it's that. And it was in his work. I said, AI wrote this. I said, man,
Mhm.
this just won't fly. So be very, very
Well,
careful about having AI write your material.
do not do it. And if you start off with AI as the primary generator, and then you're going to come up and clean it up, maybe with your voice and stuff, you can't copyright that book.
Hmm.
So you might want to think about that, everybody. I had to, I do this every other year. I'm involved. Barnes and Noble is one of our sponsors in raising the monies. We give five $17,000 scholarships to aspiring authors. And we just had, I gave kudos to my team, my VAs in these social media posts we created. They do the push out. I do all the creative side. They are the executors on it. And I started writing press releases for that. I start 3 months prior to the deadline. Every freaking week, a new one goes out.
Hmm.
We were overwhelmed with the number of applicants,
Hmm.
overwhelmed going through it. And I had to go back and I sent out literally last night to all of them to verify because it should have been on the form that they did not use AI to generate, to create, to do this. I'm not. I think it can be helpful in research if you know your resource for your research. Very, very helpful here in doing that. And they're all responding back because my judges are asking me just because some of the things. And Dan, one of the new animals that is out here now, it's Readsy. You can find ads on Readsy. You can find on Upwork. You can find them on Fiverr. People who are saying, I can take your AI created manuscript and de AI it. I can take it's just like, whoa,
Yeah,
on that.
yeah.
I can take out the tills, I can take out the cliches, I can take out the all of a sudden, this magnificent thing. Anyway, I, I just I just want to encourage everyone. This is your creative work. I so honor the creativeness of people's in their imagination and they're bringing their expertise. It's just, I bow to all of you who can do it and do.
Exactly. Exactly. I think one of the things that people don't realize about AI and writing is that
Mhm.
writing is fun. Writing is your
Yeah,
creative outlet. And
yeah.
I know that half the people who are listening to this podcast are saying, yeah, that's me. And the other half are saying, gee, I wish I were like that. And I can appreciate that. But at the same time, when I'm in the zone, when I'm writing, whether it be fiction or nonfiction, and I'm just letting those stories fly, It is a wonderful feeling to put words on paper that really sing and really make you feel like you're sharing your story with the world and helping people, and or even just helping yourself. I mean, when I wrote my book, the cancer book, I was able to like revise or look at some of my old stories that I was telling myself. And I remember there was this
Mm.
one time that this anecdote. I was on this not a blind date, it was like the second date with a woman, and it really wasn't going quite well. It was sort of like, okay, it was sort of like a middling date, and I drove her to her house, and I knew I was going to get invited in, the kid, goodnight kiss, whatever. She literally ran out of the car and ran to her apartment. I feel like, damn,
Oh,
the date
well,
wasn't that bad. And then I
well,
realized, here it is, decades later, the story keep on my mind. It's like, wait a second, it was raining cats and dogs that night. Of course she would run to her apartment because it was raining. And suddenly, like all the head trauma about that whole thing just disappears. Like, oh yeah, that story wasn't how I remembered it at all. It was like everyone's had dates that went nowhere, no big deal, you're not going to lose any sleep over it. But running away, that hurt. But realizing she wasn't running from me, she was running because of the rain. Who cares? Of course she was going to run in the rain. And suddenly the story just poof, disappeared. So when you
Mhm.
write, writing can be therapy because you're revisiting those stories from a different light. There's another story I tell in my book. When I was a little kid, maybe 4 or 5 years old, my brother was teaching me how to ride a bicycle. So we're riding in the middle of the street, just getting my first time on a bike, and he was holding onto the back, and I was pedaling slowly, and he was walking slowly, and I pedaled faster and faster, and suddenly he wasn't holding on anymore. And I looked back, he said he wasn't holding on. Well, if he's not holding on, how can I possibly stay up? So the bike, I stopped pedaling, and I fell
Ah,
and cracked my head open. Well, I didn't crack my head open, but and it's like, well, duh, of course, if you're pedaling fast, no one can keep up with you. Can keep up when you're riding a bike. So of course he had to let go. And of course I would be pedaling on my own if I just kept on going. And so it's like, oh, he didn't abandon me. This is just natural physics. Again, writing is healing. Writing can free you from stories that you told yourself that could have been holding you back. And these stories are not for publication. These stories are just for yourself to help yourself get to the next level.
but when you remember these stories, because
Yeah.
we're in our like final minute here, wrap up. Those are the things that keeps your book alive and brings you as a human being to your readers, which is always a huge plus. I don't care, how you write, or what genre you're writing in. I think the humanity side is always critical. I asked Dan a couple of minutes ago, what's changed? So much has changed. It's 90-10 in my opinion. 10% is your writing, the 90 is the marketing. And it's the marketing that's changed so much in
Mhm.
so many ways. You don't do TV and radio the way you used to. It's got to get out. It's the connections. But the gold mine, and I'm going to close on this. I'd love your opinion. And then we want to thank the fabulous Dan Janelle for being with us. His book coming out next month is Reframing Cancer. But if you want to do the things that we're talking about today, it's write your book in a flash. All right. With that said, and it's Dan Janelle, and Janal, Janelle.com to find his website. So, Dan, that things have changed. To me, emails are the gold mine, and it's building those and having those and staying connected. I've always said the success of an author is the two P's in the C: patience, persistence, and consistency in getting things going. That's where I think and come from and try to drill into my clients. You?
Again, I agree completely, and there's so many more avenues for you to get your message out now. Back in the day, you had to work totally with reporters, and hopefully would review your book on newspapers. Now
Mm-hmm.
you have blogs, you have YouTube. You're your own publishing company. Substack is a wonderful way to build a new community.
Mm-hmm.
So there are just so many ways. I'm not part of the TikTok generation, but people listening to this very well might be. TikTok, Instagram, social media. There's so many ways to promote your book these days. It's a shame if no one reads it. So find out where your readers are and use a social media platform that attracts them.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just say as we close out here, one of the big hot things, is your YouTube shorts and understand the value power of carousels, where you have 5 or 6 you loop together and you tell a whole story. That's where the power is for marketing. With that, we bid you adieu. We'll see you next week with a whole new show.